I like that.
All right, take out piece of paper. You're not turning it in. If you want to use tablets to draw on, it's fine, but you're drawing. Here's what I want. I want you to draw the bones from the sternum through the humerus. I'm pretty sure you can ask, but I don't know that you can intervention. So. So, draw. Sternum through humerus. So, shoulder girdle. You got it? What kind of joint is the sternoclavicular? So, what kind of joint is AC? What kind of joint is bloody hero?
Hinge.
Ball and socket. Good. Now, add in ligaments and label them. Add in ligaments. So draw from the sternum through the humerus, and then add in ligaments for each of those joints. Your memory, not theirs. Go. Got it? Done yet? You got it? Done yet? How many ligaments in the sternoclavicular joint? Give me different numbers. I like 4. So you come in and you go, there's a manubrium, comes into a sternum, little xiphoid process. Little bloated clavicle there. You give me an acromion that kind of comes back up into the spine. There's the first rib that comes in there. Coracoid. Let's see, coracoid, glenoid, humerus. What ligaments do we have? So, sternoclavicular joint, what ligaments do we have? Anterior, posterior. Sternoclavicular, what else? There's two of them. Interclavicular. Good? What else? Costoclavicular. First rib up to that clavicle is that proximal tether. So here's how this works. Did you get them all? Because if you missed one, not a nightmare. Just create a little list. I missed interclavicular. Just start a list of where your holes are. Good? AC joint, what do we have? Yeah, the AC ligament, which is really the joint capsule. Coracoclavicular is that distal tether. What's unique about it? There's two pieces to it. What are the names of those two pieces of the coracoclavicular ligament? Louder?
I know this is
It's like that trapezoid and conoid. So if you didn't get it, not a big deal. We go, okay, I had no idea about conoid or how to spell. Or trapezoid. Good. Glenohumeral. Bigger list. So we have superior, inferior, and middle. Superior, middle, inferior glenohumeral ligaments. Then we have two coming off the coracoid. What are those? Coracohumeral, coracochromial. 5 of them? Did you miss it? Put them on your list. Take this. Well, there's 2 more that are not directly related to the joint. What are those? Transverse humeral. Suprascapular sitting up in there with the suprascapular notch, right? Good. Awesome. Now erase it, flip the page. What do you have to do? And do it again. Go. Good.
right there.
How'd you do? Did you do better second time around? A little bit of a refresh? Still have a gap? Still have something you couldn't quite pull on? Custom. Custom. Good. Good enough. Good. So put it back on your list, right? So it's okay to miss. It's just you need to have that repetition. You need to produce it. So I am that guy that will take a test, and when you ask me a question, I will tell you the exact page number it's on. It's on page 87 in the bottom right-hand corner. And I have no idea what that paragraph says. I know where it's at because I'm familiar with my text, because I spent time highlighting text, and I spent time looking over it. And that's where it got me. Immense frustration in that. You need to use your text as a reference the first time. You can use it as a way to double check when you produce information. Aside from that, set it aside. Do things that require you to come up with answers, to demonstrate you know that material. Drawing it. Whiteboards, brilliant ways. Draw it out. Nobody's judging your drawings. I've been doing it for 15 years and it still doesn't look very good. And I'm not even trying. I don't care. It's not artwork to me. It's just visual reference. So work on it. And if it, but limit and change how you work on it. Do it for no more than 30 minutes when you're playing with the bones within one given structure. And then change. Do something different. Do history, Spanish, don't care. Just change to muscles if you really want to stay sticking working with functional at that time. But change. So, spine of the scap. Good. Then we have the glenoid, humeral head, infraglenoid tuberosity, supraglenoid tuberosity. So work your way through the posterior side with osteal landmarks. Can you label superior angle, inferior angle, medial border, lateral border, spine, acromion, infraglenoid tubercle, supraglenoid tubercle, deltoid tuberosity, intertubercular groove? Can you see intertubercular groove from this view? Greater tuberosity, lesser tuberosity of the humerus. You have a Word doc that has a list of all the osteal landmarks on any given bone. Cool. Build what you can and double check that you got it. And where you find holes, where you stumble, awesome. That's what you need to study. So work on it. Erase it. Do it again. How many muscles in scapular stabilization? 6. Good? Could you please draw any one of them? One of them. Give me another. The quicker you jump up, the higher the likelihood you get to grab the one that you know. Muscular scapular stabilization. There's 6 of them. Just draw one of them up there.
Oh, sorry. I think
Oh, third marker out. And all of a sudden, wait a minute.
teres minor.
Oh, I was going to do that one.
Teres minor. What group is teres minor in? Rotator cuff. Scapular stabilizer. Notes acting on the humerus.
Supraspinatus, is that one?
Yeah. Scapular stabilizers. What are they doing? Stabilizing the scapula. That means they're coming off of the axial skeleton, off the ribs, off the spine, and they're acting on the scapula. So they're not going to cross over the humerus. Trapezius, love it. Where's the trapezius one? Where's the trapezius originate? Occiput through T12. What is an insert? Where's an insert? So, occiput T12. Where's an insert? Across the spine of the scapula. It comes up like that, right? Trapezius. That's one of them. Now they're giving me this little guy over here, so pec minor-ish, but except in that drawing. We have a group of muscles that is serratus anterior. That the finger-like projections that are coming off the ribs that slide up and have an insertion on the medial border. Good? What's that? Okay? So we also have rhomboid major, rhomboid minor. What's coming off the superior angle? Levator scap. Where does it originate? Transverse process, what level? C1 through C4. So it's coming up. What are we missing? What can't we see from here? Pec minor. Where does pec minor originate? Yeah. Where does it originate? So ribs, 3 through 5, it goes up into the coracoid process. So it originates axoskeleton. It goes out to function on the scap. Good. So what do I want? I want you to walk into the test with colored pencils and ask for a blank sheet of paper. And I want you to brain dump everything you can. I want you to draw it out. And then when I ask you a question that says something like, which of the following is a glenohumeral, acts on the glenohumeral joint? And you read through them and you're like, wait, so what are my groups? I have rotator cuff, I have scapular stabilizer, and then I have the other. How many are in that other group? How many act on the glenohumeral joint that are not scapular stabilizers? The rotator cuff. 7. 3 in the front, 3 in the back, 1 on top. Really? Get it off the page. This is my nightmare. It's a great way to have an organization. It's my nightmare because I need to stop telling you it's on page 85 in the bottom right corner. I need to be able to have a single piece of information. I had note cards galore when I was a kid. I hate making them. They take forever. Yeah. You draw it a few times, you imprint the image of it, and it changes them. Not to mention, when you study, you could just erase it and do it again. Double check with your notes. Your notes are there for reference. Your book is there for reference. Produce it when you study. Note cards are a good way to produce it. Note cards, quiz yourself. And anytime you stumble, put it aside and hit those that you miss hard. And then mix them back into the stuff you do know. Over and over and over.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there tutoring still on Thursday?
Yes. Yes. So, whiteboards live in here. There's a stack of them. Come in, use them, play with them. Use Windows. My ACV class, yeah, beautiful mind, love them. They're all over my Windows. It's awesome. Do it. Use whiteboards. Use Classroom. 222 is almost always open. It's a student study room of sorts. As long as there's no meetings planned on that white sheet, go study. Grab somebody. You take care of the ligaments. They follow up with muscles. They double check your work. Whatever it takes. But you've got to own it. You've got to find a way to get it stuck in your head because we're running out of time. Okay? So today, we're going to do forearm musculature. There are 18 muscles that we're going to cover today. So let's find ways to help stick this in your head because it comes across like, oh my goodness gracious. We had 7, right? 3 in the front, 3 in the back, 1 over the top to move our humerus. Plus 4 in the rotator cuff, that's 11. Plus 6 for scapular stabilization, that gets us to 17. And that took me, what, like a day and a half to get through? And I'm going to do 18 in less than the time that we have left. So there are pieces, there are ways to approach this that structure and simplify that approach. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get started like a herd of turtles. Nice and slow. Screen share. All right. Forearm musculature is very analogous to lower leg musculature. In the lower leg, we group things by compartments, and that's how I had you learn. What did those muscles do in the lower leg? What types of motions did we have? We had plantar flexion, dorsiflexion of the ankle, inversion, eversion. What else? Toes. Flexion, extension of toes, right? Big toe is a little bit different. What's the name for big toe? Hallux. So the name that we have for the thumb? Hallux. Hallux. So you're going to see that. Most of what we have there is going to be similar to here. So it's not entirely foreign, but it's a little different. That's not what we need. That's what we need. Okay. So, first things first, we need to back up one little piece because we kind of skipped over that guy.
What is that? Ah.
All right, so this guy right here, we're looking at the elbow. Back of the elbow, we have this olecranon bursa. Basketball players, volleyball players, they like to dive onto hard surfaces, hard ground, smack elbows into floors. Smack. Very technical term. Smack. So we have two ways to make bursa mad. We can tend to have too much friction, too much pressure on them, irritates them, we get a bursitis, long-term inflammation. Or we can smack it. We can have an acute trauma. You take a bursa with an acute trauma, and it looks really cute. Like we get this huge grapefruit softball type deformity coming off the edge of it. So it looks grossly nasty and deformed. And so on an emergency management, you're looking at this elbow going, okay, is it dislocated? Is it broken? Is it a busted bursa? And you're going to work the best way because everything's going to hurt. I would say dislocation is the worst of some of your concerns. That bursa will resolve itself within a day or two. The swelling will go down, it will resolve. And elbow dislocation, not so much. So just be mindful that it may not be worthy of freaking out because you might not have that elbow dislocation. It's far more rare than something like just smacking the elbow into the floor and busting a bursa. So you need to know the olecranon bursa is there. Good? Good. So with that being said, it can go away. Okay. So from there, so if you want to see it, it's that little dude right there. Back of the elbow. You get rid of all the other stuff, bring it back. Maybe. Go away. Oh, I broke it. All right, stuff's come back. All right, so what's all the random like translucent snot on the front? What's that? Remember that? Bicipital aponeurosis. What was its function? What does it do?
Helps with muscle contraction.
Helps that muscle contraction. So that biceps brachii is dropping down. What's its insertion point? Radial tuberosity. Good. Biceps brachii, remember you can feel it, you can hook it because it's that hook test, right? So it's going down into the radial tuberosity, but then we have this off of its distal tendon is this aponeurosis, which is kind of connective tissue fascia. It means it's not just grabbing the bone, it's grabbing everything, soft tissue and otherwise to help us create that flexion. Good? Cool. And you go. Take your hand. Raise your hands at your shirt. I want you to put the heel of your hand into the crook of your elbow. Good? So I want your index finger aiming towards your index finger. I want your ring finger pointing down your ring finger, and I want you, so 3 fingers, over the top. Your thumb gets to hang off diagonally. Your pinky, like you're drinking a nice cup of English tea, gets to hang off the end. We're not using it. We'll just ignore it completely. So, boom. Fingers on, pinky's off. We'll ignore the pinky. We're going to associate a muscle with each of these fingers. Good? So, thumb. Well, let's go back. We had dorsiflexion, plantar flexion of the ankle. We had inversion, eversion. We had toe flexion, extension. What do we need to do here? Largely the same. We have to flex and extend the wrist. Flex and extend the fingers. We got to move that thumb around. And then we have, instead of inversion, eversion, we have pronation, supination. Good? Easy enough. So, hand on elbow, thumb, pronator teres. Good? Nice and easy? Diagonal muscle, reaches across, runs in that direction, right underneath your fingers, grabs that radius, pulls it over, we get pronation. Pronator teres. All right, so index finger and ring finger are going to be very, very similar. They're going to slide up and grab into the carpals. More specifically, most of the metacarpals. But they're going to grab just past the wrist. And they're going to create wrist flexion. Index finger, flexor, carpi, radial side, flexor, carpi, radialis. It flexes the wrist by grabbing on the carpals, by grabbing on the small bones of the hand. Flexor, carpi, radialis, flexor, carpi, ulnaris. Flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi ulnaris, right? So, elbow trick, thumb, pronator teres, index finger, flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi ulnaris, pinky finger. So that just leaves the middle finger. And there's like 3 layers deep on this one. Because the middle finger is just sticking it to you, right? All right. First one we have. Let's see. We're going to get rid of breaker radialis. We've already chatted about that one. Gives us a better view anyways. Pronator teres. Got it? Good. Now it's gone. What else do we need to do? We need, well, there's your flexor carpi radialis. Nice and superficial. It's grabbing into the second and third metacarpal. It's grabbing into the right underneath the first, the index and middle finger. We've already talked about it, so it's out of the way. Flexor carpi ulnaris. Found it. We're over here on the side. Grabbing into, well, it's going into the 5th metacarpal, and then you've also got a couple bones in here called the pisiform and hamate. We're going to go back when we do hand and wrist, and we'll touch a bit more on those insertions. So we'll go over the carpals before we start hammering those too hard. So we're going to kick it out of the way. All right. So 3 muscles underneath your middle finger. The first of those runs right up the middle called palmaris longus. Palmaris longus actually inserts into the ligament right in here. And again, we'll hit that in a little bit. The ligament and fascia. So it's not grabbing directly onto a bone. It's kind of grabbing soft tissue. It's a weak wrist flexor. You ever heard of palmaris longus before? We use it. We harvest it for surgery. So this is your Tommy John surgery. This is, you go and rupture anterior band, UCL, stretch it out to where it's not tightening back up. We rupture it, whatever. We're going to go take palmaris longus out of the left arm so we can use it to rebuild the ligament on the right elbow. Seems pretty involved. We do it on 14-year-olds because we overpitch it. Ridiculous. Right, on that soapbox. All right. So, palmaris longus. We can live without, so we're going to do without. So we're going to take it off. Boom, it's gone. All right, next one. Flexor digitorum superficialis. It's the superficial finger flexor.
This is still in
This is still your middle finger. This is the second one on the middle finger. There's three. We abbreviate this FDS, flexor digitorum superficialis. Superficialis is for strength. FDS is for strength. Good? It goes to the middle phalanx. It goes to the middle of your finger, the middle digit. It gives us this right here. So it's going to flex the proximal interphalangeal joint, the first of the interphalangeals. Good? Now, everything we've done so far, go palpate your humerus, find that flaring of that medial condyle as it comes off. As soon as you find that medial condyle, get on that joint line, flex your fingers, make a fist, flex your wrist. And you're going to feel a big taut band all of a sudden where all that muscle tightens up. Everything we've talked about so far has the same origin. Well, that's helpful. Merry Christmas. They all have the same origin. Now, FDS is the first one that deviates a little bit because we've got part of it actually wraps over to the radius. So we can use the common flexor origin, which is medial condyle, medial epicondyle. FDS is the first time we really deviate a little bit to where that's reaching over to get leverage off of radius as well. But it's a pretty big muscle. Last one. We kick that one off, and underneath it, flexor digitorum profundus, FDP. FDP is for precision. This goes to the distal tip, the distal interphalangeal joint, DIP. It's fine motor control. So my son, I have a random story. He was in preschool, and they were doing manipulation stuff. So they had a sand pit, and they had stuff buried in the sand. And so they're teaching kids to kind of, just to work on that fine motor control. Except he always heard it as find motor control because he was finding things in the sand. Yeah. So he had really good find motor control. He would tell us that. It was hilarious. We didn't ever correct it. We just thought it was funny. So, FDP, flexor digitorum profundus, is for precision. It's that motor control, the DIP, the distal interphalangeal joint, the tip of the finger. That leaves two muscles. We have this one sitting here, deep flexor pollicis longus, flexes your big thumb. Flexes your thumb. Good, I'll let you know. Flexes your thumb. And the last one down here, we call it the wristwatch muscle. It's pronator quadratus. It sits in a band right under here and helps us pronate, like a watch. There you go, pronator quadratus, wristwatch muscle. So what do we have? Hand on wrist, on elbow. Thumb is what? Pronator teres. Index finger, flexor carpi radialis. It's on the radial side under the thumb, radial bone. Ring finger is corollary, flexor carpi ulnaris, on the ulnar bone. Middle finger. There's three of them, palmaris longus, FDS superficialis, FDP profundus. Now, all of those are common flexor origin. FDS also reaches across onto the radius. It's a big muscle. It's got to have a lot of anchor point. And then we have underneath all of that, we have flexor pollicis longus and pronator quadratus. So we can get most of it with this, and then there's two left over. Not a nightmare. Practice it though, especially today. Before you go to sleep, practice it. So what we're going to do then is we're going to use that trick, because as soon as I remove all of those lovely muscles and flip my guy over, we got a whole chunk of stuff on the back. So here's how we're going to play the back. We're going to use the same hand trick, because if we flexed it, we probably need to extend it. So most of those have a corollary on the back. So that's going to be our first group, our first 5. Then we're going to do hook 'em horns. And then we're going to do something called the anatomical snuff box. Good? So hook 'em horns will be 2, snuff box will be the last 3. That will give us 10. And the trauma has ended. 18. 8 on the front, 10 on the back. Good? All right, so if we're here, right? So again, we're going to use our hand trick to start. If this is, the thumb is what again? Pronator teres. So I need a pronate, I need a supinate. Supinator. So just straight up supinator. Oh, it's going to be deep. We'll have to come back to it. It's underneath the waist. Supinator. It's very Phineas and Ferb. Dr. Doofenshmirtz. All right. So, pronator teres, the opposite is the supinator. What was my index finger? Flexor, carpi, radialis. Other side, extensor, carpi, radialis.
Oh, yeah.
We have a longus and a brevis. There's 2. So close. Flexor carpi radialis longus, flexor carpi radialis brevis. What was my ring finger? Flexor carpi ulnaris. Other side, extensor carpi ulnaris. That's it, just 1. Middle finger. Well, that was fun. What were the 3 for middle finger? Palmaris longus. FDS, flexor digitorum superficialis. And FDP, flexor digitorum profundus. On the back, extensor digitorum. That's it. Nice and easy. So the only one that throws you is probably extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis. Not too bad. Pronator teres. Supinator. Flexor carpi radialis. Extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis. Flexor carpi ulnaris. Extensor carpi ulnaris. Flexing digits. FDS, FDP, extensor digitorum. Good? That's the first 5. Then we go hook 'em horns. Extensor indicus, I-N-D-I-C-I-S. I-N-D-I-C-I-S. I'm extending my index finger. Extensor indicus. And then we have extensor digiti minimi. It's very Austin Powers. Extensor digiti minimi, extensor indicus. And you can feel some of that. So find that first, that knuckle for second round. Your index finger, find the knuckle. Right in there, you've actually got 2 tendons that help extend that. You've got extensor digitorum and you have extensor indicus. If you go to third right, middle finger, you just have extensor digitorum. So I'm not making stuff up. It's actually there. You can feel it. You can find it. There's 2 tendons right in there. All right, so that leaves anatomical snuff box. Why do I keep doing it this way? Because if you extend your fingers in your wrist, then there's this little pocket that shows up at the base of your thumb. That little pocket is called your anatomical snuff box. There's a gap right there. Now, on that gap, even if you can't see it, you can feel it to palpate. But on that lateral side, posterolateral side, there is a gap. Now, if you go laterally, you're going to have two tendons sitting right there. You go more medially towards the midline, towards the third ray, you've got one. Those are my last three muscles. The most lateral is abductor, abductor, pollicis, longus. And it's going right there. I mean, right where you can feel it is as far as it goes. It's going to the base of the first metacarpal.
Did you say the name of that again?
Abductor,
Abductor.
pollicis,
Yes.
longus. Well, the very next one over, so we have that pairing together. The very next one over is extensor pollicis brevis. And then we have that big gap, that snuff box. And that last muscle, as we go back towards the third ray, back towards the midline of the hand, extensor pollicis longus.
Oh, that one's actually.
So what do we have? We have two extensors and an abductor. And we have two longus and a brevis. So to keep them organized, none of them are together. Abductor and extensor, then the gap, then the extensor. Longus and brevis, then the gap, then the longus. So they're never paired together. The extensors are never together, and the long guy are never together. Abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis. Extensor pollicis brevis is going across the metacarpal phalangeal joint, the MCP. So metacarpal phalangeal goes right here. Longus goes all the way down across the interphalangeal joint, the IP. And it extends to the tip of your thumb. That was the last 10. That was fun. So, extensor muscles, likewise, the majority of them are coming off of lateral epicondyle, the common extensor origin. There's a few that aren't, but most of them, you can see all kind of originate up in this lateral elbow area. And we can resect a few. There's digiti minimi. There's my extensor digitorum. And so you're starting to see that we have a few. There's supinator. Supinator. So down here, though, we have a few that aren't. Abductor pollicis longus. There's my extensor pollicis brevis and my longus. So the three that make up my snuff box. And there's my extensor indicus. Everything else, pretty much, common extensor origin. So 18, however, 8 flexors, 6 of the flexors have the same origin. The majority have the same origin. And on the extensor side, again, likewise, there's 10 total muscles. 4 of them are off shaft, but the other 6 are going to be off common extensor origin.
There's a common flexor origin.
Common flexor origin, medial side. Common extensor origin, lateral side. So that took me like 20 minutes to get you guys through that. That's abusive. So what I want is you guys to take the time, process it. Okay, for this weekend, we've done, in 2 weeks, we've done sternoclavicular through every muscle that through the forearm. That's a chunk. You got a 4-day weekend. So in between Easter egg hunts, y'all need to make sure you need to make sure you study. Get to work on it. I'm not going to add anything new. What we're going to do next is going to be hand and wrist, so that'll be next week. And then that gets us into a mental break. We'll come back and touch on gait, just for giggles. We'll do brachial plexus, which is the nerves that come out of here. That's easy points. It's a drawing. You draw it like 5 times and it's memorized. And then you gotta label it all. That's too.
Yeah.
So
So do we have a quiz on Wednesday?
there will be a quiz on Wednesday. The quizzes are going to be the first class of every week. So yes, even though we don't have class Monday, that's the first class. So we're shooting out Thursday. We will be tutoring on Thursday. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. I managed to show up. Sunday's got sessions. Wednesday at 9. At 9. Today. So Thursday was 6 p.m. in this room with Stephanie. Good? My TAs tend to be cooler than me, so people tend to show up. All right. Okay.
Great.